I'm John Regner, Battalion Chief with Oceanside Fire Department.
And if you tell us where we are tonight, and of course this has been an ongoing incident, if you could tell us, where it started from when you got that first call up to where we are now, a little summary if you would.
Yeah, so we're here at the Oceanside Pier. This call came out approximately 11 hours ago, 3 p.m. Reported fire underneath the end of the pier. There's a Ruby's restaurant that's been closed for several years. So the fire came out under the pier or in that building. We responded, and almost immediately this fire went defensive just due to the access issues, the length of our hose lays that we needed to put in to put water and apply water onto the fire itself. So we had a lot of resources here. We were unable to put the fire out. As you can see, it's still burning in the back. We did go defensive on it, and we continue to put water on the fire now. So currently we've got 2 engines working and 3 fire boats. We're applying water from the fire boats from below, and we're applying water from the actual pier via a 4-inch master stream.
And okay, so you said it's been 11 hours at this point. How long is this expected to last?
It's unknown at this time, just due to the nature of the fire, the location, and the danger of putting crews further on down the pier. It could potentially last for several hours, maybe into tomorrow.
And forgive me if I missed this, so you have 2 boats in the water and then some crews on the actual pier at this point?
We actually have 4 boats in the water. 3 of those boats are fire boats, and they're applying water to the fire from below. And what was your other question? Sorry.
And how many people on the pier itself?
There's currently 4 staff from an engine and 1 battalion chief out on the at the end of the pier.
And what are the different tactics going from a boat, in the water, and then on the ground, on the actual pier? What are you looking to accomplish from both of those angles?
So I'll start with the pier. Again, due to the nature of the fire, the location, and the difficulty in accessing the building, we decided late into the fire to actually cut a trench in the pier to prevent that fire from moving from the building up the pier. So in an attempt to save the pier and prevent the fire from moving east towards the coast, we actually sent crews out there and they cut a trench into the wood of the pier, into the decking material, so that we would have access to apply water down through the deck onto the structural members of the pier, and basically draw a line in the sand, for lack of better terms, so that we could prevent that fire from moving eastward.
And in a previous briefing, it was said that there was 1 civilian reporting party, and the lifeguards were your other essentially reporting party. Could you detail what the civilian saw and what the lifeguards saw? Who was that civilian? Whether it may have been an employee of the Brine Box eatery at the end of the pier?
I can't tell you who it was that called, because I don't know, but I do know that there were employees at the Brine Box when the fire was reported, and the lifeguards headquarters is underneath the pier here at the lifeguard headquarters, so they're actually the closest responding units to the fire.
And any collapses at this point?
Negative, no collapses.
Obviously, I'm not sure how long. Could you say how long you've been with Oceanside Fire?
I've been with Oceanside Fire for 13 years.
Very historic fire here. Could you just comment on the historic aspect of this fire?
Yeah, obviously this pier is over 100 years old. Obviously, this is a historic fire. I believe it's the second in its history. If I recall, there was a fire in 1976, about halfway down the pier, but we haven't had anything like this since. And this pier is very important to the residents and to the citizens here. It's sort of iconic for the city, so it's really important that we try to preserve this for Oceanside.
Could you comment on any difficulties, the challenges that have been dealt with this fire? Of course, it's on the very end of the pier, as opposed to maybe it would be a little easier to fight if it were here on the eastern end, and the wind that you were dealing with earlier, and any other challenges that you've been made aware of.
Yeah, starting off with the weather, as you mentioned, this was a wind-driven fire. We had wind blowing from west to east, so it was pushing smoke into the coast. That also made it difficult for crews to get close and to access the building that was on fire. Due to the fire being at the end of the pier, we could only attack it with firefighting crews from the pier, from the east side. Other crews were fighting it from the water, so we had fire boats in the water applying water streams onto the fire, and we actually had 2 helicopters doing water drops on top of the fire during the daylight hours.
And the helicopters, can you comment on the tactics used there and what they were brought in?
So our partners with CAL FIRE and SDGE were able to respond. They were able to supply and provide 2 helicopters, and essentially they were able to make water drops on the fire and knock it down so that we could get crews closer and fight safely.
And you said initially, the initial report was that the fire was on the underside. Could you comment on how that complicated the fire effort?
As far as there are reports that it came from underside, and throughout the firefight, there were reports of the fire continuing to be underneath it. When the majority of the fire crews arrived, there was so much smoke and fire that it was difficult to ascertain where the fire was actually coming from. A lot of the smoke was obstructing the view.
And is it safe to say both the former Ruby's building and the Brine Box building are destroyed at this point, and the pier, where does it stand in terms of how much destruction there's been of the actual pier itself?
It's safe to say that those 2 buildings are destroyed. As far as the pier goes, the end of the pier is, the term that they're using for that is the hammerhead. The pier goes out in a straight line and then it boxes out into the shape of a hammerhead. So there is going to be some damage on that. I can't comment on what the extent of the damage is because we simply don't know yet.
Do you have any indication as to how long this may affect the pier in terms of a closure? Obviously it's closed right now. Would it be opened any time in the near future? Do you know?
I'm sure that engineers are going to have to come out and assess damage to see what the structural stability of it is, and I can't really make a comment on that because I simply don't know.
And the charred debris started washing up on shore here. Could you comment on that as well?
There were some reports of charred debris that had fallen off the pier and had made their way to the shoreline.
And the wood is, we heard it was covered in oil to protect it from weather impacts. Could you comment on the complications that offered in the firefight?
Yeah, there is a chemical content in the wood as a preservative, and I'm sure that's had an impact on our ability to put that out.
And forgive me if you mentioned this already, the length of this fire, what's creating we're almost 12 hours into it, and you say it could continue for at least, more hours on end. What's causing the length of this firefight as opposed to maybe a house fire that's put out in under an hour?
So a lot of the structural members of Ruby's are large frame timber. So it's a deep-seated fire into that building. It's also due to access. We simply can't get fire streams close enough. We do have a large master stream that's applying approximately 800 to 1,000 gallons per minute on the fire, as well as the streams that are coming from the fire boats. There's just simply so much fire that all we're able to do right now is keep it in check, keep it from spreading down the pier.
Is this a second alarm at this point? How would you describe the alarm magnitude?
The fire ended as a second alarm. Currently, we have, as I mentioned, we have 2 fire engines and 4 boats. And this is a defensive fire, so at this stage we have released a lot of the units back into their cities so they continue to run other emergencies and calls, and we feel comfortable with the units on scene to keep this fire in check. We may add some additional units in daylight hours tomorrow when we have safer conditions.
And at its height, was it a second alarm fire or was it higher?
It was a second alarm fire. We also had aircraft, which is not typically part of a second alarm fire for a structure fire.
And are helicopters coming back during the daylight hours?
Unknown at this time. I'd say that's doubtful.
And as a fire chief, I'm sorry?
Battalion Chief.
Battalion Chief. As a battalion chief, how does this compare to fires you've seen before? Is this the largest you've seen in Oceanside? And and maybe North County as a whole?
It's not the largest fire I've seen, but it's definitely one of the most non-typical fires, being at the end of a pier. In my history, in my time at the Oceanside Fire Department, I have not had the challenge of fighting a fire on a pier. So the uniqueness, the location, the fact that this is a historic building and it has cultural significance to this community, that's what makes this a very unique fire.
And any injuries, and I know the firefight's still underway. Is there any indication of a potential cause at this point?
No known injuries at this point, and the fire's under investigation.
Okay, anything you'd like to add, sir?
That's it.
Thank you very much.